Run, you filthy hairless apes, before we Ferengi skin you alive and feast on your flesh. Ambassador Lyra cackled as she watched the hologram of the terrified humans fleeing in panic. Lyra turned to her aide, Krax, with a smug grin. Can you believe these primitive creatures thought they could negotiate with us on equal terms? They're nothing more than savages, barely evolved from their primate ancestors. Lyra waved her hand dismissively. A fluke, nothing more. These humans have no advanced technology, no long-term vision. They're too busy fighting among themselves to pose any real threat to the Ferengi alliance. But what about their rapid expansion in the sector? Krax pressed. They've been forming alliances, establishing trade routes. It could impact our interests. Let them try, Lyra scoffed. We Ferengi always come out on top. No matter the challenge, we find a way to profit. Krax fell silent, but the unease remained. He couldn't shake the feeling that the humans were more adaptable than they seemed, that their weaknesses could become strengths. And as the Ferengi plotted and schemed, the humans prepared for war. They had been insulted for the last time, dismissed as nothing more than hairless apes. Now they would show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. For the survival of their species, for the pride of their people, the humans would fight, and they would make sure the Ferengi regretted ever underestimating them. The hologram fizzled out as a blinking red light on the console caught Lyra's attention. She tapped the flashing button, and a grainy video of a Ferengi operative appeared. The operative spoke in hushed tones. Ambassador Lyra, we've made a critical discovery. The humans have a secret military base, codenamed Prometheus, hidden on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Our sources indicate it's a research facility developing advanced weapons and propulsion tech. Lyra snorted. Impossible. Those primitives couldn't possibly have made such progress without us knowing. Your intel must be flawed. Krax leaned forward, studying the operative's face. I'm not so sure, Ambassador. The humans have always played their cards close to their chest when it comes to their military capabilities, and we've seen reports that the UEF has been pouring resources into R&D lately. Even if that's true, what are you suggesting? That we send a team to infiltrate this supposed base? Lyra asked, her tone dripping with skepticism. Lyra shook her head. And risk a diplomatic incident if we're caught. The humans may be savages, but they're not idiots. The potential benefits outweigh the risks, Krax insisted. Imagine what we could do with advanced human tech at our disposal. We'd be unstoppable. Lyra tapped her fingers on the console, weighing her options. As much as she hated to admit it, Krax had a point. If the humans were indeed developing cutting-edge technology in secret, the Ferengi needed to know about it. Fine, she said at last. Assemble a team of our best operatives, but make sure they understand the need for discretion. If this goes wrong, it's on your head, Krax. Krax nodded, a gleam of excitement in his eyes. I'll get right on it, Ambassador. You won't regret this. As Krax hurried out of the room to make the necessary arrangements, Lyra leaned back in her chair, a sense of unease settling in her gut. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were underestimating the humans once again. But what choice did they have? The Ferengi had to stay one step ahead, no matter the cost. Days later, Lyra stormed into the command center, her face contorted with barely restrained fury. Krax, get in here now. Krax hurried in, his expression one of trepidation. What is it, Ambassador? Has something happened? You could say that, Lyra snarled, jabbing a finger at the holographic display. Our operatives on Europa just reported back. They infiltrated the human base, and you won't believe what they found. Krax leaned forward, studying the readout. His eyes widened in disbelief. Is this accurate? A shipyard capable of mass-producing advanced warships, and these plans for an Odyssey-class vessel? The weapons and shield specs are off the charts. Krax shook his head, still trying to process the information. I can't believe it. How could they have developed such advanced capabilities without us knowing? It has to be a trick, Lyra insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. A ploy to intimidate us and the other species in the sector. There's no way the humans could have the resources or the know-how to build ships like this. Krax frowned, unconvinced. I don't know, Ambassador. We've underestimated the humans before, and it's cost us. Maybe we should reach out to the Klingons and the Romulans, see if they have any intel on the humans' activities. As Krax left to contact their allies, Lyra sank into her chair, her mind racing. If the humans truly had achieved such a leap in technology, it could shift the balance of power in the sector. And if they decided to use that power against the Ferengi... Lyra drummed her fingers on the console, her brow furrowed in thought. Arrange the meeting with this Worf immediately. We need to know exactly what the humans are up to. Krax nodded and hurried off to make the necessary arrangements. Hours later, they found themselves in a dimly lit room, facing the imposing figure of Worf. The Klingon spoke gruffly. I have seen the humans' capabilities firsthand. Their technology has advanced at an alarming rate. Lyra leaned forward. And what of this alliance with the Vulcans? Worf's eyes narrowed. The Vulcans were hesitant at first, but the humans impressed them with their ability to think logically and solve complex problems. They have agreed to share their technology. Krax and Lyra exchanged a stunned look. Krax spoke up. This changes everything. If the humans have access to Vulcan technology, they could be unstoppable, Lyra finished, her voice tight. But perhaps we can use this to our advantage. The Vulcans and humans are fundamentally different. If we could exploit those differences, drive a wedge between them. Krax's eyes gleamed. It could weaken their alliance, make them vulnerable. Lyra held up a hand. But we must tread carefully. Underestimating the strength of their partnership could be our downfall. Just then, a message flashed across the console. Krax read it quickly, his face paling. Ambassador, our operatives on Deep Space Nine have uncovered something disturbing. The humans have been using the station to gather intelligence on us. And there's more. He looked up, meeting Lyra's gaze. They believe the humans may have infiltrated our government at the highest levels. Lyra stared at him in disbelief, her mind reeling. If the humans had managed to penetrate their ranks, the consequences could be catastrophic. Every plan, every strategy could be compromised. She took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. We need more information. Contact our operatives on Ferenginar, have them sweep for any signs of human interference, and double the security on all our communications. We can't afford any leaks. Krax nodded sharply, already moving to carry out her orders. As the implications of human infiltration sank in, Lyra slammed her fist on the console. This is unacceptable. We cannot allow these hairless apes to undermine our very government. Krax nodded gravely. I agree, Ambassador. We must act swiftly to root out any traitors in our midst. He immediately set to work, deploying their most trusted operatives to investigate every level of the Ferengi power structure. Days turned into weeks as the investigation unfolded, each new piece of evidence painting a more disturbing picture. Finally, Krax burst into Lyra's office, his face grim. Ambassador, we've uncovered a shocking revelation. One of our most trusted advisors, Zek, has been secretly collaborating with the humans for years. Lyra's eyes widened in disbelief. Zek? But he's been a loyal servant of the Ferengi Alliance for decades. What could have possibly motivated him to betray us? According to our findings, Zek has been providing the humans with sensitive information about our military capabilities and trade routes. In exchange, they've been supplying him with advanced technology and promising him protection. Within hours, Zek was dragged before Lyra, his hands bound and his head bowed. Lyra circled him slowly, her voice dripping with contempt. Well, well, well. The esteemed Zek, caught red-handed selling out his own people. I hope whatever the humans offered you was worth throwing away centuries of Ferengi tradition. Zek lifted his head defiantly. You don't understand, Lyra. The humans approached me years ago with an offer I couldn't refuse. They promised me a position of power and influence in the new galactic order they're building. I was simply acting in my own best interests, as any good Ferengi would. Krax scoffed. Your own best interests? You've put our entire civilization at risk for your own selfish gain. As the interrogation continued, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Zek's story than he was letting on. She leaned in close, her voice barely above a whisper. "What aren't you telling us, Zek? What is the true extent of your betrayal?" Before Zek could respond, an urgent message flashed across the console. Krax read it quickly, his face paling. "Ambassador, our operatives on Ferenginar have detected a massive fleet of human ships entering our space. They're headed straight for the homeworld." Lyra and Krax looked at each other in horror, the weight of their miscalculation hitting them like a phaser blast. They had underestimated the humans at every turn, and now their entire civilization hung in the balance. Lyra barked orders to her crew as the Ferengi fleet assumed defensive positions around Ferenginar. The tension on the bridge of the Prophet's Glory was palpable as they watched the human ships approach on the view screen. Suddenly, a hail from the UEF flagship came through. Lyra narrowed her eyes as the face of Johnny Roberts, the smooth-talking human diplomat, appeared before them. "Ambassador Lyra, there's no need for hostilities," Roberts said calmly. "We're not here to fight." Lyra scoffed. "Then why bring a fleet to our doorstep?" "To show you we're serious about our offer," Roberts replied. "The UEF believes the Ferengi could be valuable partners in our mission to explore and expand throughout the galaxy." Krax leaned forward, intrigued. "What exactly are you proposing?" Roberts smiled. "An alliance. We share technology, open new markets, and work together to achieve our goals. Your business savvy, combined with our advanced capabilities, could be a formidable force." Lyra remained skeptical. "And why should we trust you after your spies infiltrated our government?" "That was merely a precaution," Roberts assured her. "We needed to ensure our interests aligned before approaching you. As a gesture of goodwill, we're willing to share some of the intel we've gathered." Krax turned to Lyra. "It's worth considering, Ambassador. The potential benefits are significant." Lyra drummed her fingers on the armrest, weighing the options. Finally, she spoke. "We'll hear you out, Roberts. But let me make one thing clear. The Ferengi will not be taken advantage of. Any hint of deception, and this alliance is over." Roberts nodded. "Understood. Shall we begin negotiations?" As the two sides prepared to discuss terms, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that this was a turning point for the Ferengi. The question was, would an alliance with the humans lead to prosperity or utter ruin? As the negotiations between the Ferengi and humans continued on the Prophet's Glory, Roberts shared more tantalizing details. "You see, Ambassador Lyra, the United Earth Federation has been hard at work, forging alliances and trade agreements across this sector. The Cardassians, the Bajorans, we've made inroads with them all." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Impressive, and what exactly are you offering them?" Roberts smiled. "Stability, prosperity, a chance to be part of something greater. We believe that by working together, we can all benefit." Krax leaned forward. "And where do the Ferengi fit into this grand vision of yours?" "I'm glad you asked," Roberts said. "With your extensive trade routes and business acumen, the Ferengi could play a vital role in this network. Imagine the profits to be made, the new markets to exploit." Lyra drummed her fingers on the table. "It's an intriguing proposition, but I can't help but wonder, what's in it for you? Why are the humans so eager to play nice with everyone?" Roberts spread his hands. "We're explorers, Ambassador. We seek knowledge, understanding, and yes, the opportunity to expand our influence. But we believe in doing so through cooperation, not conquest." "And what of the Vulcans?" Lyra asked. "I understand they are your closest allies." Roberts nodded. "Indeed, the Vulcans have been instrumental in helping us develop new technologies and push the boundaries of what's possible. In fact, I'd be happy to arrange a meeting between your people and theirs. I think you'll find you have much to discuss." Krax's eyes lit up at the prospect, but Lyra remained guarded. The Vulcans were not to be underestimated. An alliance with them could bring great rewards, but also great risks. As the talks wore on, Lyra and Krax were kept apprised of developments by their operatives scattered throughout the sector. On Deep Space Nine and other key outposts, the Ferengi spies reported a flurry of activity as the humans leveraged their advanced technology and intelligence-gathering capabilities to monitor the movements of the Klingons, the Romulans, and other players on the galactic stage. This stream of information proved crucial in the negotiations, giving Lyra and Krax a clearer picture of the complex web of alliances and rivalries that shaped the balance of power in the region. Gradually, despite their initial misgivings, the Ferengi leaders began to see the humans in a new light. Perhaps these hairless apes were not merely another species to be exploited, but a civilization of depth and sophistication, one that could prove a valuable ally in the tumultuous times ahead. The negotiations stretched on, as Lyra and Krax carefully weighed the costs and benefits of aligning themselves with the humans and their growing network of allies. The potential profits were staggering, but so too were the risks. Could they trust the humans to uphold their end of the bargain? Would the Vulcans prove to be friends or foes? And what of the other species the humans had brought into the fold, the Cardassians, the Bajorans, and who knew how many others? These were the questions that raced through Lyra's mind as she sat across the table from Roberts, the weight of her people's future resting on her shoulders. Krax, meanwhile, seemed to grow more enthusiastic with each passing day, his eyes gleaming with visions of the riches that awaited the Ferengi if they could successfully navigate this new frontier. But even as they grappled with these momentous decisions, Lyra and Krax knew they could not afford to let their guard down. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and the humans, for all their talk of peace and cooperation, were still an unknown quantity. They would have to tread carefully, gathering information and weighing their options, even as they worked to hammer out the details of this unprecedented alliance. And so the negotiations ground on, as the Ferengi and the humans sought to find common ground and forge a path forward in a universe that seemed to grow more complicated by the day. As the negotiations continued, Roberts made a surprising offer. "Ambassador Lyra, Commander Krax, I would like to invite you to visit Earth and see our civilization firsthand. I believe it will be a valuable opportunity for you to learn more about us and our way of life." Lyra and Krax exchanged a hesitant glance. The idea of setting foot on the human homeworld was both intriguing and unsettling. Krax spoke up. "I'm not sure that's wise, Roberts. We still have much to discuss here." But Roberts was persistent. "I understand your reservations, but I assure you it will be worth your while. You'll have a chance to see our cities, our culture, our technology. It will give you a better understanding of who we are as a people." Lyra drummed her fingers on the table, considering the proposal. Finally, she nodded. "Very well, Roberts. We accept your invitation, but I expect our safety to be guaranteed at all times." "Of course, Ambassador. You will be treated as honored guests." And so, Lyra and Krax found themselves on a human shuttle descending through Earth's atmosphere. As the clouds parted, they gasped at the sight before them. Vast cities stretched out in every direction, with towering skyscrapers reaching towards the sky. The streets were filled with people and vehicles, a bustling hive of activity. Their human guides took them on a whirlwind tour of some of Earth's most impressive sights. They marveled at the intricate artwork in the Louvre, the sheer scale of the Great Wall of China, and the ancient majesty of the Egyptian pyramids. At the UEF headquarters in New York, they were introduced to some of the organization's top leaders. The humans spoke with passion about their mission to explore the stars and forge connections with other species. During their meetings, Lyra and Krax learned more about human history and culture. They were surprised to discover that humans had endured countless wars and conflicts, yet always managed to rebound and push forward. The human leaders smiled. "It's not been an easy path," one of them said, "but we've learned that there is strength in diversity, in coming together despite our differences. It's what drives us to keep exploring, keep reaching out to others." As their tour continued, Lyra and Krax were introduced to some of humanity's most advanced technologies. They marveled at the sleek lines of human starships, the efficiency of their replicators, and the stunning realism of their holographic displays. The highlight of their visit was a ride aboard the USS Enterprise. As they stepped onto the bridge, Krax couldn't contain his excitement. "This is incredible," he breathed, running his hands over the gleaming consoles. Lyra, too, was impressed by the ship's capabilities. The human crew demonstrated the advanced warp drive, the precision of the targeting systems, and the power of the defensive shields. Throughout their stay on Earth, Lyra and Krax were struck by the warmth and hospitality of the humans they met. Despite the initial tensions between their species, they were treated with respect and kindness at every turn. As they prepared to depart, Lyra turned to Roberts. "This visit has been enlightening," she said. "I must admit my perceptions of your species have changed. You are not the primitive savages we once thought you to be." Roberts smiled. "We're glad you've had the opportunity to see us in a new light, Ambassador. We believe that our two species have much to offer each other." Krax nodded in agreement. An alliance between the Ferengi Alliance and the United Earth Federation could be immensely beneficial, not just strategically but culturally as well. As they boarded the shuttle back to the negotiating table, Lyra and Krax knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There were still many details to be worked out, many trust issues to overcome, but for the first time they felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this was the beginning of a new era, a time when the Ferengi and the humans could stand together as allies, as friends. Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same. Lyra and Krax stared at the viewscreen in horror, as images of the devastation on Bajor flashed before their eyes. The human colony lay in ruins, buildings reduced to rubble, and bodies strewn across the streets. Krax shook his head, his face grim. "According to our sources, the attack was carried out by Ferengi extremists. They used our own weapons and technology to slaughter innocent humans." Lyra felt a wave of nausea wash over her. "But how did they get their hands on our weapons? We have strict controls in place to prevent this kind of thing from happening." Krax hesitated, then spoke softly. "It seems that some of our merchants have been selling weapons and other dangerous technologies to anyone who would pay, without regard for the consequences." Lyra's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? How could they be so reckless, so irresponsible? Don't they realize the damage they've done, not just to the humans, but to our own reputation?" Krax sighed heavily. "They were blinded by greed, Lyra. They saw an opportunity to make a quick profit and they took it, without considering the potential risks or dangers." Lyra buried her face in her hands, overwhelmed by a sense of guilt and shame. "We should have been more vigilant, Krax. We were so focused on the benefits of our alliance with the humans that we failed to consider the unintended consequences." Just then a message from Johnny Roberts appeared on the view screen. His face was somber, his eyes filled with a mix of grief and anger. "Ambassador Lyra, Commander Krax," he began, his voice tight. "I'm sure you've heard about the attack on our colony on Bajor. The human government is launching a full investigation into this atrocity, and we will be holding the Ferengi responsible for any involvement or complicity." Lyra's heart sank as she realized the severity of the situation. "Johnny, please know that we are deeply sorry for what has happened. We will do everything in our power to bring those responsible to justice and to prevent further attacks." Roberts nodded, but his expression remained grave. "I appreciate your condolences, Ambassador, but words alone are not enough. If the Ferengi do not take swift and decisive action to address this issue, our alliance may be in jeopardy." Krax leaned forward, his voice urgent. "We understand, Johnny. We will work tirelessly to track down those responsible and to implement stricter controls on the sale and exchange of weapons and other dangerous technologies." Roberts ended the transmission, leaving Lyra and Krax alone with their thoughts. They knew that they had to act quickly to prevent further violence and to preserve the fragile trust between their two species. Over the next several days, Lyra and Krax worked closely with their human allies to investigate the attack and to bring those responsible to justice. They pored over intelligence reports, interviewed witnesses, and followed every lead, no matter how small. Eventually, they were able to track down Brunt and his followers, who had been hiding out in a remote corner of Ferengi space. In a daring raid, Ferengi and human forces worked together to apprehend the extremists and to seize their stockpiles of weapons and technology. But even as they celebrated this victory, Lyra and Krax knew that the damage had been done. The attack on Bajor had shaken the very foundation of their alliance with the humans and had forced them to confront the darker aspects of their relationship. As they sat in Lyra's office, reflecting on the events of the past few weeks, Krax spoke softly. "We can't take our alliance with the humans for granted, Lyra. We must be more vigilant, more proactive in preventing these kinds of attacks from happening again." Lyra nodded, her eyes distant. "You're right, Krax. We have to earn back the humans' trust day by day, action by action. It won't be easy, but it's the only way forward." Krax placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder, his voice filled with determination. "We'll do it together, Lyra. The Ferengi and the humans, side by side, facing whatever challenges lie ahead. Our alliance has grown into something deeper than either of us could have imagined, and we won't let it fall apart now." Lyra looked up at Krax, a small smile playing on her lips. "No, we won't. The path ahead may be uncertain, but we'll walk it together, as true friends and allies." And with that, they turned back to their work, ready to face the future no matter what it might bring. The attack on Bajor had been a wake-up call, a painful reminder of the risks and dangers that came with their newfound alliance. But it had also shown them the strength and resilience of their partnership and the depth of the bond that had grown between their two species. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.